Welcome to the Theory of DFS podcast. I'm Jordan Cooper, the co author of The Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass you can pick up at theoryofdfs.com. Join with me as always now. As always, you're not like Eric. You don't skip weeks and I can't wake up and I got stuff to do. It's Neil Orfield. And I'm surprised that you don't bail on me. I'm used to Eric. It makes me feel better when he would come
Eric's a busy
on.
guy. He's
He
he's
would,
doing the spike week thing now, all of his best ball stuff. He's a much busier guy than I am after I quit my job in September.
yeah, but he comes on. He plays this one game changer lineup and goes, "Oof, I lost." And I just every time you come on, it's like up $100,000 in showdown. Just fuck it. And I look that must have been a smaller field contest. I mean,
Yeah,
I saw the ownership. It's like your lowest owned guy is 33% owned. Don't
I
tell
didn't even
me
look at
that
that.
you won 100,000 in a unique lineup with that, right?
Yeah, I mean it was I left I think 2,300 salary on the table,
Mm.
so I mean that way I got you. But yeah, it was a 1,500 field, $222 entry contest. So not my usual bread and butter. I'm not usually successful in the higher stakes games, but this one worked out.
And but you still make 150 and you just put like the top one or whatever. You don't do it
No,
by contest size, right?
So yeah, I'm pretty bad at these higher dollar stuff in general because I don't. So I make more than 150. So for example, yesterday I had 11 entries in the 222 and then 150 in the $11 or whatever the main thing was. Um, and I do 161 unique lineups
Mm.
across those. I don't do 150 and then just put my top ones in the 222. But I think that in general, I don't have a ton of success because I don't think that I actually spend enough time differentiating. So I make my pool and I make my lineups generally for the largest field contests, and then I just put the top projected 11 into that one typically. Um, and I look at some of them. I think that I played it terribly yesterday. I think that my lineup that won was a good lineup. I look at it and I'm like, this lineup makes sense. And then I look at the rest of my lineups in that contest and I had one with Dax Milne in it. Somehow that was one of my top projected lineups. I mean, it is my projection, so it's using the adjustments that I made to get some. I wanted to have a few Dax Milne lineups, and I only had like maybe two or three, I think, in my 150 set. But somehow one of those was actually my top projected and made it into that $222 entry, 1,500 person field where it's totally unnecessary to play Dax Milne, who will maybe get a couple targets if he's lucky. So yeah, still, I think I got kind of lucky, but I mean, the lineup that actually won, I feel good about that lineup. It looks like a lineup that I would want to play in that contest, but I think I have not made the adjustments that I need to make to be good at those smaller field, higher dollar, where the field is sharper and you don't need to be leaving salary on the table in showdown as much, and you don't need to be getting quite as unique. I think that in general, I'm not playing it that well when I look at my lineups, but that one got through. So
But
yeah,
when you look at the results, though, I know in Roto Tracker you could try to segment by that. I mean, is
yeah.
that noticeable in your ROI?
It's very noticeable. I'm massively profitable in uh, low dollar. Anything under like $50, I'm massively profitable, and anything that's over $50 entry, I'm massively negative. Obviously, this helps, cuts into it, but I'm still a losing player in contests where the entry fee is $50 or more. And I know why that is because I haven't really that's not my bread and butter. It's not something that I've tried to like. I don't study how pros play those, and I don't like I said, like yesterday, all of my lineups I left a lot of salary on the table, even in the $222. Some weeks I actually am better about that, where I actually do a separate set of lineups for that. But I think that I'm not really making the adjustments that I need to be good in those tournaments. And now that I'm starting to play them more because now I'm starting to try to do this professionally. I'm trying to step up a little bit, but I haven't really made the adjustments that I need to do yet to become profitable in those kind of games.
Well, the magic question is there a need to step up? Because I mean,
Yeah, I
I
know.
mean
Yeah,
the thing that I mean this is I mean where it's December 27th. Since I'm not playing NBA DFS, like essentially this closes the book on my 2021 play, and I've always said that just like in poker, like a year is just a fake construct of like, well, how was my year? It's like, well, if I organized my year differently from like fiscal year October and got like two big binks in one thing, it'd have been like, oh, I made this much money, and then the next year made nothing. I mean, like you could segment it in so many different ways. So I don't like getting stuck on how much did I make from January 1 to December 31.
Right.
But uh you say that like, oh, you want to step up, you quit your job in September and you want to step up, but aren't you wildly successful at where you are? That
Yeah.
is there it is the step up, because I'm struggling with that this year, because I'm
Yeah.
looking at my roto tracker from this year, uh and this calendar year, I'll bring it up. uh let's see, 81,000.
And
So
you'll take
like
that in a calendar year.
right, I'll take that. Exactly. I'll take that in a
Yeah.
calendar year. Now that's buoyed by one big bink.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I mean essentially. And it's it's odd that in the beginning of the year, talking with Eric, that like the thing that I don't like about DFS is that when you play large field GPPs, is which is what my game is more geared towards, my
Hmm.
strengths are more geared towards, is that you're so reliant on that like one big bink. Like obviously, the more that you max enter, you need multiple ones.
Yeah. Exactly.
But like for me at my volume, since I don't play 150 max most of the time, that if I get if I could get 150K bink, it's like that secures my profit. If I could get two of those, if I can get 100K plus, like that makes my goal. And my goal is always 50 to 75K a year on average. So like
Yep.
I succeeded, but like my goal in the beginning of this of the year was like maybe I should be playing more of the higher stakes, small field stuff, the three figures, the $100, $200, less than 1,000 entry type of thing. Maybe not the smallest fields like Eric does with the 1,500 and above, but
Yep.
it feels like I failed on that goal from maybe a contest selection standpoint. But it always comes back to it's the natural. We're what, 64 episodes in, and I've been saying this entire time. It's hard for me to quit the lower stakes, smaller, larger field GPPs, because I feel as if the rake is paid.
Yeah.
It's
No,
just
I
that
agree.
realizing that EV is the tough part. Is the struggle of like, okay, I got my one big bink. I got a couple of 10 to 15,000 wins. I got a couple of $4,000 or $5,000 wins, and plus all the money that you have to lose money to make money, right? You're not going to win. You're going to lose
Yep.
90% of the time. Uh that like my goal in the beginning of the year was maybe I should be stepping up. Maybe I should be quote stepping up.
Yeah.
But to get to this point, it's all been on the backs of playing 50 entries into a large field GPP.
Yeah.
And why
Well,
why
so
shouldn't I
so
just
this
be
is
why shouldn't I just be doing that? And I'm going to ask the question of you. It's like,
yeah.
why do you feel the need to have to go up there when, like, if you're wildly profitable, obviously a
So
lot of it is the
I
milli
think the
maker,
answer
but I mean, like, why?
I think the answer is really that I'm competitive. That I see other people how much they're making. I listened to Alex doing a podcast. Did you watch Alex's podcast? The Alex Big T and Whistles did a podcast with Stu Gatz, who I wasn't familiar with, and he's talking about they asked him how much he makes playing DFS, and he was a little bit reserved about it, but he implied I think that he makes over $1 million a year, and so that's the level that I'm like, man, I would like to get to that level, and obviously I did last year on the back of one milli maker win. I'm not getting there this year, but I think that is. I see how well other people are doing, and there's just a part of me that's like, I want to get like at least close to that level. I don't really have any aspiration to be the top player in the world because I don't think that I have. I think to do that, I would have to be probably making my own models and doing a lot more work than I am currently, and I'm pretty happy to make as much as I do with the amount of work that I do. But I think that I'm still sort of competitive enough that I want to be, continuing to climb a little bit in the ranks and try to become, one of the top players in the world. I think is part of it. Um,
And do you even know that the people that you aspire to are even making money? I mean, like, There's a
I mean,
difference
I'm
between
confident that
Alex,
Alex is
but
making
but I
money.
mean,
Yeah.
but there's a but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
That
no, I think that there are, like, if you look at the Roto Grinders ranking, I was actually kind of shocked when you I can't remember which show it was on that you talked about how among the top 50 players in the world on the Roto Grinders ranking, 10 of them are losing players or something like that. You
right.
mentioned, and that was I'm not going to guess as to who is there. There are some that I'm like, yeah, I would guess that player is a losing player, but for the most part, I was surprised to hear that there are 10 in that group that
There
are
may be
losing
more.
players.
There may. I mean,
Yeah.
in a given year, you could have a bad year. You could. I mean, the Rotogrinder rankings are all volume based. So
Oh yeah. They're
right, like
currently have I
you
currently have
could win $100,000 once, get all those points, and then lose 51 other weeks of the year and be
yeah.
down $300,000.
Yeah, I don't put a lot of stock into them because I think one of my like top 3 currently on there is like a $30,000 showdown win that I tied with other people. Is currently listed as one of my highest point totals, and I'm now up to 5 six-figure totals that are not counted in the Roto Grinders rankings for various reasons. So yeah, I don't put a lot of stock into the Roto Grinders rankings, but I do, still I'm sort of competitive, and I try to, I just want to be among the best. I'm trying to be as good as I can, and there's a part of me that just thinks I want to beat the game. I want to be able to be profitable in those higher stakes games, just as to know that I'm capable of, and I know in the back of my mind that I am capable of taking that step up. But it's still like you wanna be able to actually see yourself do that. But
But you have to increase your risk in order to do so, though.
yeah, yeah, I know, and that's I mean, so yeah, being just fully transparent. So you've seen me. I've won $300,000 wins. I've had $300,000 wins since I won 300,000 once in October, I believe, and I am down over that period $20,000. So I still kind of consider myself to be currently on a downswing because I have not yet reached that all-time high that I had in October. So October, after my $300,000 win, was my all-time high of profit in DFS. I had reached the most profit I've ever had, and now since then, even though I've had $300,000 wins, I have actually lost money. I've lost $20,000 total in the 2 months since then because after that $300,000 win, I tried too hard to step up too quickly, and I was playing really high volume and wasn't playing it right and lost a lot of money really quickly. So yeah, I do that self-assessment all the time of maybe I should just be doing the 150 max because that's always like that's been by far what I'm the best at. I think that's how my brain works. I'm good at my strength is in getting different than the field in ways that make sense, and that's not as big of a strength in a 1,500 person contest or a 1,000 person contest. But I
But
still think that
it's also the makeup of the contest. It's like it's
yeah,
much easier to exploit the lower stakes large field stuff
right.
because the mistakes by a large portion of the field or enough of a portion of the field, because you have to figure that even in a 50,000 entry contest, if 10% of the entries are like dead to start, like you
Hmm.
don't get that in the high state.
Yeah.
Like nearly
No, I
everyone
know.
that's playing is playing a competitive enough lineup that the out of the 50 bottom lineups of your 150 are still like positive EV against the
Right.
average of the field in the low stakes, but in the high
Yeah.
stakes, that
No, they're
Dax
not. Yeah.
Milne lineup is
Yeah. That was terrible. I
you're
know.
just
Like,
giving
there's no
away
reason
money.
to. I'm the mark essentially in those lineups. So in those contests. So yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's maybe it is something that I think about all the time. Like, if I just play the 150 max, like the typical biggest contests, I know that I can be successful in those, and I can probably make enough money that I'll be happy with. So yeah, I think that the question is a valid one. Is there any reason that I need to step up? And there really isn't. And I usually, so the way that I play is after a big win, I play more in those big contests, and then it goes down, down,
But
down
isn't
as
that the
I
bad? Isn't
lose.
that the that's what most people do? But
Yeah,
isn't that the complete opposite of what you should be doing?
yeah, probably.
No,
I mean,
I'm saying I'm not against taking shots. Okay, I
yeah,
don't want to come off as like the total nit. Like, but take shots smartly. Like it's like, oh well, I won $300,000, so like I'm gonna max the Wildcat next week. It's like, why don't you max the Wildcat on a slate that you think you have a bigger edge? Like
Right.
what or instead I'm going to play 20 entries and not 50 and space that out over time. Like I understand upping your play. I understand, your bankroll increases, your percentage should go up, your edge go, as you move up. I understand that completely. But I mean it must be eye-opening to people. I know we talk, I know I've said it tons of times. I know Eric said it tons of times. But a real life example of in October, you won $300,000, and then since then, if you cut off your DFS play at that point and just go from that point to current, you would have gone on Twitter, seen you post your 100K, 300K screenshots, and then go, well, Neil's having a great 3 month period, and you're like, no, I'm actually down 20,000.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
most people that are listening to this, like if you win 100,000 once, it's like
Yeah, it's mind
how are you
blowing.
not profitable for the whole year? It's
Right.
that's like
And
for
you
but
are if you
the difference between me and you is that if I just got one of those, it's very hard for me not to have a profitable year.
yeah.
But of course my risk tolerance is much lower than you. I mean, like
Yeah.
I also don't have as much of a shot at winning $1 million because I'm not playing 150 entries, $3,000 into the Millie Maker every week. So it's
Right.
like there's a give and take there, and it seems like uh, I don't know. It from your personality, it seems like this is a weird compliment in the this would be an insult in the gambling space. You seem so much more grounded in reality
Yeah.
that
Well,
after you quit, like to me, I would feel like you're the type of person that after you finally took the plunge and quit your job in September, that you'd end up trying to be more conservative, being that
yeah.
there isn't this underlying income stream coming in
Right.
to like, well, what happens if I go broke type of thing. And it
So,
seems like you're like, no, your mindset was I'm I'm doing this full time, so like I'm going up from here. And you
yep.
knew at the time that you quit your job that you are taking on risk. Your family understands that, and
Yep.
you're going to do it smartly. You're not going to just blow through $1 million or anything.
Right.
But it
So
just
I will
seems like
say,
you seem like you're the type of person that would be like, no, no, no. I'm going to be much more sensible now, being that I
right.
have things to take care of, and I'm not
Yeah.
sure if
But
I could win on this. That like does your family know that you that like if I told my wife that I won I showed them $300,000 screenshots and then say, well, I'm down $20,000, she would look at me and go, what the fuck are you doing?
yeah. Well, so yeah, my wife and I have had many discussions about risk tolerance and what we're doing here. Um, Keep in mind that this all happened after a $300,000 win. So if that win had not happened, if I would not have stepped up my game after I quit my job, I would have been playing the 150 max because that's been my bread and butter. I would have continued playing that. I only stepped up and got to the point where I could lose, money despite having $300,000 banks because I had won that $300,000 prior to that. So that kind of allowed me to step up and take a
It's
little bit
house
more risk.
money, right? Oh,
That
your
was fun.
attitude?
Yeah.
It's house money.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, it's a little bit more bankroll to try to step up my
Mm.
game. And yeah, I mean, it's true that I should probably uh, scale it back a little bit, and that's I mean, I have scaled it back in general. Um, but I guess I'm an eternal optimist. I have a lot of confidence in myself. I feel like, I know that I am a plus EV player overall, that I should be able to take that step up. And even though I haven't done it yet, I still feel like it's coming probably. But I mean, I go back and forth. To be honest with you, I go back.
Am I
Sometimes
causing
I
you to
just
doubt
think,
yourself now?
no, I do have this in the back of my mind. Like, should I just be? I'm never going to be as nitty as you are, where you're not even 150 maxing. But I think it might
Hey,
be the
hey, hey.
prudent thing.
I win 50 max every like on
Yeah,
FanDuel for MLB.
sure. The
I'll
five
150
taller.
max. The problem comes in is on DraftKings when they're not running the low stakes contests at
Yeah,
like
I get it.
$18 entries. Like I'd almost rather, like, to me, I'm not scared of the field size. So like I'd rather have a 60,000 entry contest at an $6 to $8 price point than a $22,000 entry contest at an $18 price point. So like
Yeah.
I'm going to $4.44, and I have no problem.
Yeah.
115. Like to me, that's the thing. So it's like I want to keep my total allotment of volume down. It's not
Right.
it's really not the number of entries.
Listen, I learned the word nit from you. I'm calling you a nit because you call yourself a nit. So don't take it as an insult. I'm using what you've told me about yourself and what I know, from our conversations now, that you're not playing nearly the same volume as I am. But yeah, I mean, it's a valid question. Why do I even bother playing these tournaments that I have not proven to be a plus EV player in the $50 more entry fee contests? It's just, I think that's just a step that I want to take, that I think I'm capable of taking. But I also think maybe I need to change my whole process, because I only have so much time to build lineups, and I think that I would need to probably change some things around to change the way I build those lineups versus the lineups that I make for GPPs. And currently I haven't really done enough to differentiate my lineups in the 222 from the 150 max type of contest. I mean, for example, yesterday I didn't even usually I take off the rule for those lineups of leaving salary on the table. So I force in leaving some salary on the table in showdown typically, but then for the higher dollar stuff, I'll take off that rule. And I didn't even do that yesterday, which is probably why I ended up with a Dax Milne lineup in that contest.
Is it the type of thing that maybe if you want to get better at those contests that I mean, I know the 150 max is your bread and butter types of contests that choose a sport like when NBA and MLB are going on at the same time and go, well, for MLB I'm 150 maxing, but I'm going to work on my 10 max game for
Yeah, that's a good idea.
NBA and just like have all your headspace be into that instead
Yeah,
of and
I think that
then
makes
once you
sense.
could
I've
prove to
thought
yourself
about doing
that
that.
you're doing well, then you could try to do both at the same time.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. And that's like, for me, if I'm, for example, we talked about one of these past weeks how I'm not profitable on Wednesdays. It's the one day of the week that I am negative
That's
EV
when you
player.
should be
And
only
it's
doing 10
partially,
lineups on Wednesdays.
and it's partially because I'm going to my brother's house on Wednesdays and not really putting in quite the same amount of mental energy into it. I'm, a little bit distracted, don't spend as much time on it. I think that would be a day that it would make sense for me to only do 10 lineups and really just focus on those 10 lineups rather than what I do, which is I do that and then I also do the 150 max and then I throw in a few other lineups because, hey, there's 11 games and there's so many different plays that I think are interesting. So I up it, and you don't really have as much edge on those 11 game slates. So
Maybe at this point on Wednesdays you should have your brother make your lineups.
maybe, I mean, he used to back when we started. He would make basically a cash game lineup just to have something going while we were watching the Timberwolves, and he occasionally would beat me, and he would he didn't follow any content. It was just like, we're watching the Timberwolves. I'm going to choose 3 Timberwolves players and then 2 of the opponents and
Mhm.
players that he liked, and then he was usually losing money, and then occasionally he would be like the top of the 50 max or of the 50-50, just because his lineups were so weird because they were not based on any kind of knowledge.
Well, they built Showdown just for him.
Right? Yeah, he would be great. Yeah,
Right.
probably.
It's like, you just want this game? Okay, well then here's all the players from this game.
Yep, that's true.
But I mean,
Yeah,
the side benefit of you winning but losing money, we it's at what anytime I lose money like this past yesterday minus 28%, and a lot of that came down to when you split the on the cash line and you double ups like 40 ways. That's going to happen when a $25 double up only pays $14. That's a
yep,
problem, right? Uh, I just chalk it up to tax loss harvesting.
yeah,
Just
right.
tax loss harvesting, right? It's reducing your tax liability. It's
Yep,
tax loss harvesting season because then you like, okay, I didn't lose 3,000 yesterday. I really only lost maybe like 2,400 because the other
yeah, something
600
like that.
I would have had to pay to the government,
Yep.
right? But isn't that a faulty way of like thinking? Because like,
Yeah, because then if you win, you're also only winning 70-80%, whatever it is.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I know I'll do a tax episode at some point. Come tax time or whatever.
Yep.
But now that that you know I rearranged my tax situation that now I could like write off a whole bunch of stuff and carry over losses and things like that. I've been told it's okay to do whatever like that. It's just weird that there's a lot of people that are like that will say it's like, well, in the last like month of the season, if you're up a whole bunch, like just go balls to the wall. It's
Yeah, I've
like
seen I've seen tax advisors give that advice, and I don't understand it. Yeah, it's I think it might be in jest to some extent from the tax advisors. I'm sure they're not they're kind of
I,
joking
gue-
when they
I
give that
guess
advice.
I
You
guess
can't be
maybe
in it.
there are certain circumstances where based on your tax bracket or
Maybe.
but I to me it doesn't make like you or if you could push your edges more, do it then rather than
Yeah.
putting yourself in the hole in the beginning of the year.
Yeah. So I make no claims to be a tax expert, so I don't really want to speak on whether it makes sense from taxes. I
I'm just
people
trying.
ask me
I'm trying to
sometimes.
put a spin on why
Yeah, yeah, no,
losing
I get it,
money
I
is
get it. Yeah,
it's a positive.
yeah, right. I mean, I want to take that advice. Hell yeah, I'll go balls to the wall. I'm happy to. Uh, but but yeah, I just to me logically it doesn't make sense because it goes both ways. That if you're profitable, you're only making that much less. So yeah,
Assuming that you're in the United States. If you're Canadian, we hate you.
right. Yeah, fuck you.
Right.
Fuck
Canadians
you,
get to
Canada.
keep it all.
Yeah,
Canadians get to keep it all, and they get health care
free healthcare. Yep,
and the
they
child
got it
tax.
made.
And we not even get the. I
Pretty
don't even
cold
have a
though.
child.
It's pretty cold. Although it's cold here too, so I don't even know what's the benefit of Minnesota.
Right. You're not that far away anyway. Why don't you
Yeah,
just drive up there and keep all your money?
that would make a lot more sense. Maybe I should.
Uh but yeah, but yeah, but I mean, at being this is the last podcast of the year, that's why like just going through my roto tracker and just assessing like the year in general. Like what are the things that like obviously I'm acknowledging just like I said before that a year is a very arbitrary period of exact 12 months between January and December. But is there anything that you like look at? I mean, I'm not a resolutions type. I'm not a, that type of like I'm going to review what I did over the year and then I'm going to come up with a plan and then not change it for 12 months until I reassess it. It's like you should always constantly be reassessing and reviewing what you're doing. But
Right.
do you have a like a thing of like, okay, let me take a look at my year at a glance. Like what was I good? What was I bad? What should I be changing?
Yeah, I mean, so that was something I actually looked at that before this week, the looking at different dollar entries, and it was jarring to me to see how much I had lost and like in the higher stake stuff because I've had $100,000 win in like a $400 contest and then a $62,000 win. So I thought that I was a winning player in those contests too before I looked at it, and that is something that I should probably be looking at more regularly. So I would have caught that sooner. That hey, this has not been a winning strategy for me to play these higher dollar stuff. Um, yeah, I know. I agree with you that you shouldn't look at it year over year. I had the goal this year of winning more money than I won last year. Maybe that's part of the reason that I forced myself to step up a little bit because I was like, man, I'm not going to top the million that I won last year because I just wanted to continue every year making a little bit more money, and that would require me to have another a pretty huge bank at the end of this year to get there. So it's not going to happen. But that's part of the reason that I maybe was trying to step it up. Is yeah, that was one of my resolutions. Was I want to make more money this year? I mean, it wasn't a resolution. It was a goal, I should say. It wasn't a resolution, but I had the goal of making more money in 2021 than I made in 2020, despite the millie happening in 2020, which is probably why I played.
Your goal was to make more than a million?
That was my goal. I mean, I didn't come close to it.
Well, I wouldn't think
But,
so. That seems so unrealistic for you to win the Millie Maker and go, next year's going to be a better year.
I mean, again, not a resolution. It was a goal. It was wishful thinking because up until then, I had like 3 or 4 years in a row where I made a little bit more every. I mean, obviously the millie was a lot more, but
Right. Well, that's the
just
point that I'm making.
goal.
That seems a little ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, it was a little bit ridiculous. But I guess that's we were talking about why I tried to step it up because I'm competitive. I'm competitive with myself. I want to continue improving. Maybe, and I don't think you can just like remove the millie and do the equation because it sort of changed the way I played and stuff. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that I have uh, any real resolution based like roto tracker anything that I'm looking at roto tracker wise for on a yearly basis. I've found, I'm curious if you found this too. For me, my top 1% finishes go down the higher volume I play. So like we talked about this. So I went back maybe last year at some point. I posted my roto tracker results for like year by year, and I found that when I was only playing 10, 20 entries a day, for NBA in particular, I was putting like 3.5% of my lineups, 3 to 3.5% of my lineups into the top 1%, which now I'm much more. And I'm one of those years that I had that high in the top 1%, I lost a lot of money. It was like, yeah, I was putting a ton in the top 1% and then just losing money. Now I have finally, I'm realizing profits. I've actually had very lucky bounces this year in NBA, but then still my top 1% isn't anywhere close to 3.5%.
Well, I mean, I think also the top 1% stuff gets people don't take the right context with that. Like I had a Zoom call, or in the Roto Grinders Discord. I have my own game theory channel. We do coaching calls, and top one. You have to think of what top 1% means based on the size of the contest. So, like, if you're playing, let's say, 500 entry fields, right? Top 1% is fifth place. I mean,
Right.
like that's the top end of the payout structure. If
Yeah.
you're playing a 50,000 entry contest, what's the top 1%? 500th place?
Right.
So like
And you're
500th
barely
place
making
is
money.
still is like, oh, well, I'm getting 2% of my lineups in the top 1%. Yeah, but are you getting any in the top 0.1%?
Right. Right.
Then you probably, if you're
And speaking for
150
myself, I
maxing, you're
was.
not profitable.
Yeah. Speaking for myself, I was actually getting a really high, like the same proportion in the top
Mm.
0.1%, but just never actually binking in those years. And it was just such low volume that it's like it just doesn't mean that much because you still need to actually get like in the top 2 or 3 to make a lot of money. And I don't know, I was playing high enough volume where that was necessary, but low enough volume that it was unlikely to get there. So but yeah, I think that's a really good point that the top 1% is very, people can look at that and think, wow, I'm putting, 1.5% in the top 1% and I'm doing great. And that it's true. It's a good indicator that you are putting 1.5 in the top 1%. But if you're only playing one lineup per day, that's, that you should be able to do that. I think if you're a good player, you should be able to do at least that because you're putting your best lineup in there. You're like, whereas if you're playing 150 lineups, you are, your 150th lineup is probably not as good as your top lineup. Your bottom 50 lineups are not as good as your top 50 lineup. So you're just playing a lot of, you're spreading it out. You're trying to get to that number one spot. Your goal isn't really to get to that top 1% spot, and you're probably playing not quite as good of a group of lineups than if you're playing just 5.
Right. I'm looking at my finishing position graph this year in GPP. I'm 1.6%.
Me too. Yep.
I always say, like, this is the. I mean, what we're looking at is not like a scientific method. This is a
Yeah,
like
not at all.
blunt, like, do you want to get somewhat of a sense? And I always tell people when they ask, it's like, well, what's a good rate? I'm like 1.4 to 1.8, like somewhere in that range. And then the higher you go, like if you're getting like 2.4, 2.6, and you've lost money, that probably means you're getting unlucky.
Yeah,
And
right.
if you're getting like, if you have like 0.8% in the top 1% and you're up money, you probably are
Yeah,
getting
you
lucky.
blinked once, and
Right. And that's over a large sample size. So I mean, like, oh, just this if you're playing one lineup and you just play the main slate this football season, it's like, congratulations, it's 16 slate. It's a little over 2 weeks of baseball. Like,
yeah,
it really doesn't mean that much. But the only thing that I notice in this year's graph comparison to previous years is that my other percentiles are much flatter.
okay, yep,
Like my overall
me too.
tilts very heavily. Like it looks almost too impressive. Uh,
Yeah,
and this year I'm hitting those 1% markers on a lot. Obviously, I'm hitting less on the bottom and more on the top, but not dramatically. So, I mean, I'm like at the 92nd finishing percentile. I'm like at the line type of thing where in the past I'd be like half under it or
Right.
whatever. And I'm going to chalk it up to the field's getting better.
Yeah.
Because in
That's
the
probably true.
past, if I go to 2017 or something, like though that last 10 percentile points, right, the 90th to 100th percentile would be a very severe dip down. It's like, well, I thought you're playing lineups to come in first or last. Well, it's hard to come in last when 10% of the field
Right.
is playing
Yeah.
such bad lineups.
You're not trying to come in last. It's not like you're
Right.
making lineups like, yeah.
But it's a high variance
But if you're
strategy
playing
that,
Dax Milne, there's a good chance. Yeah. But even
right.
in my Dax Milne lineup, I'm beating a lot of bad lineups. So yeah.
Right. You're still beating a lot of bad lineups. So, uh, I mean, is there anything to take out of that? No. I mean, I already know just from playing that the fields are getting better, but
Yeah.
the fields are still the worst at the lowest stakes, largest field. Your brother throwing in, a
Right.
3+2 NBA stack for no reason
Yeah.
type of lineup. Uh, maybe this coming year I I go the route that you should be going and just go. I'm just gonna play the large field stuff
Yeah.
and and still play the same like the play my 50 lineups, maybe play on multiple sites and do like that and just not like playing the 444 with one lineup or whatever. Like I don't I it's hard do you find it hard to think in both mentalities at the same time?
What
Because
do you
I
mean?
feel like I don't, but I end up doing whenever I try to make like okay I'm gonna make 3 lineups for this higher stake stuff and then 100 lineups for the low stakes. What ends up happening is either my 3 high stakes lineups are way too contrarian, or my 100 set is too chalky.
Yeah.
Right?
So I mean
It ends
that's
up
kind of what I'm
coming out
saying.
like
Like,
like what? How come half my lineups feel like like I have no one under 15% owned in any of these lineups?
and that's what I'm saying about why I think that I have not taken that step up in general in the higher stake stuff is because I just build my GPP set and I don't really I put the highest projected in there typically, but I'm not really making any um, major adjustments for playing in this larger field. So yes, I think that if I spent a little bit more time on it, I could get to it and I could be able to change my mindset to think about it a little bit differently to play in those because I know what I need to do, or I know at least some of the steps that I need to do to be better in those smaller field, higher dollar stuff. I think you need to, like in NFL, I think probably you need to correlate your quarterback with 2 pass catchers. Generally, I think typically you see that more among players in those smaller field than in the larger field. They're building in a little bit more correlation. Um, I don't know. I think that there are various things that you can do. You can play more players from one team, for example, in those kind of things. But I haven't done that yet. So yes, I guess the answer is yes. I do. I agree with you that it is hard to do both mindsets at the same time. I think that and that's something that I would like to learn to do. But yeah, there is probably some merit to just saying, well, if you're going to make a lot of money playing these large field and that's what you're best at, why not just stick to what you're good at? And maybe that's a lesson that I'm learning still, but at this point I'm still like I still kind of want to try those. Probably I shouldn't be doing, sometimes I find myself doing if there's like a $50 buy-in, I shouldn't be do 150 maxing the $50 buy-in because then I end up just not making not making lineups that are appropriate for it. But I think that taking shots here and there on the 222 again tonight, I plan on playing 11 entries. That's typically what I've been doing. I plan on playing 11 entries in the $222 on DraftKings. Hopefully, I'll spend a little bit more time on it. I guess it worked out last night that I didn't differentiate those lineups from my main GPP lineups, but maybe tonight I'll spend a little bit more time on it and try to run it back. The other thing that I wanted to bring up about Roto Tracker and looking at the top results finishes is that I kind of wonder how much showdown factors into it, because
Oh
like
yeah,
for
oh yeah.
showdown,
I eliminate. I just
okay,
eliminate showdown.
yeah,
Yeah,
'cause you're
yeah.
not,
I agree. Showdown or winner take all contests.
yeah,
Who cares
exactly,
about the top 1%? Like
yeah,
I judge my showdown play by two factors. That there's literally only two factors. Uh, Uniqueness, and it doesn't necessarily mean one unique. It could be like under 5, under
yeah,
10,
yeah,
like that, like that. And then did I win? Like literally, those are the only
yeah.
what?
I
How
agree.
many uniques? Like I play MMA, right? So I play more MMA than I do NFL Showdown, and it's the same type of mentality. Once
Yep.
it's locks, I'll upload my CSV to sports-projections.com, which is a site that has a analyzer like that. I used to do it in Excel, but it's much harder for me to do it in Excel. I just upload that shit, and I go, how many uniques? I have 150 lineups, 85 unique, 120 under 5, and I'm like,
Well
I'm
done.
good,
Yeah.
and then shit goes wrong. Then I don't. This guy, that guy wins, and then I'm down 70% on the slate. But I'm
I
like,
mean, we're
what
all
am I
going to
supposed
lose
to
more
judge
often
it
than we win.
by?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I had one. I had one MMA win. When it was a 9-fight card, and I played 100 lineups, and I had 0 uniques, and I had 8 under 10, and I'm like, yeah, it's a 9-fight card. It's hard to get unique on with only 18 fighters to choose from. But I was leaving 2,000 on the table here. I was like, and it's like
Yeah. That's what
still
happened
or
on
whatever. And, but
Christmas
but
Day
I
NFL.
ended up making like 8,000 on that slate, and I'm like no,
Wow.
that I shouldn't. That was the bad. I got lucky to even make
Yeah, yeah,
money there. But on the other
yeah,
slate where I'm unique up the ass, fucking what? All the chalk has to hit at the same time. What the fuck happened there? Right? I mean, like, but
yeah,
but to me, that's how you judge those types of things, and not by
yeah.
any
Judge
one
by your
percent
process.
graph.
I agree. Yeah, that was a Christmas Day slate. I found myself at one point. I was winning. I was in the winning, tied for the win, and I was winning like $3,500. And I'm like, man, I pride myself on that not being the case. That I'm not going to have those lineups where I'm tying with so many people. But apparently, they're just that was one of those slates where there was just too much value, and everybody was leaving a ton of salary on the table by default. So did not get unique enough there. There was just every lineup was duped a million times, at least for me.
Well, I try not to play the slates that are like that.
I mean, you can just get unique. You can leave more salary on the table in those slates. You don't do
Well,
that.
sometimes you fuck up. I mean, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
I know.
point that I'm making. Sometimes I take a look and I go, like, to me, the MMA slates that I like the best. And I know I'm eventually going to get you to play MMA, and eventually you're going to take up 150 uniques that I should be having. Uh, Now, the best slates in MMA that I love 150ing are when it's a large, obviously the larger cards, so it gives you more combinations. When the betting lines of the fights are closer,
Hmm.
because DraftKings prices all the fighters based on their money line odds at
Okay.
open. So, like, if someone's a minus 300 favorite, they're 9,500. Their opponent's a plus 280, and they're 6,700 or something, right? Because
Hmm.
they're the likelihood of winning the fight, regardless of how they're going to win or whatever. Uh, we get a lot of slates where everyone over 9,000 is like a minus 220 or above favorite, right? And then you get the mid range stuff. So, like, we get 2 to 1, 3 to 1. We get some 9 to 1 favorites. Like, it's hard to play these upsets don't happen as often that you're playing the 680 that the highest scorers on the slate end up being multiple underdogs. We get a lot of slates where there's 14 fights on the card and literally only one underdog wins, right?
Hmm.
I hate those slates
Yeah, I'm sure.
because typically a $50,000 salary type of lineup wins with the 5 highest scoring favorites and that one underdog, and that it's easy to make those lineups and then typically duped a bunch. I like when the fights are closer. They price it. They still scale the pricing the same way. So, like, the $9,200 fighter may only be a minus 175 favorite. It just so happens he's the third biggest favorite on the slate because they have like 13 fights on the card, and literally there's no one that's bigger than a 2 to 1 favorite. In those cases, the optimal lineup could leave like 3,000 on the table because the underdogs have enough of a chance of, like, you may have the four underdogs, maybe the four highest scoring fighters on the slate, and people are so tied to, well, I'm gonna spend most of my salary, and it's
Right.
like it's MMA, it's binary, so it's like the lowest price fighter does like make value. It's like, dude, quick win bonus, one punch, in the first round, and the guy scores 127 points, and doesn't matter what they don't know how much they're priced. They don't know,
Right.
right? It's just the salaries don't matter once the card starts. So like so that getting back to the point of like on those cards, that's when I look and I go, I don't mind pushing there. And then when we get these 10 fight cards, right? There's two cancellations, there's four huge favorites, three huge favorites. Like I look at that and I go, maybe I just play the 555. Maybe I only play 50 lineups. Maybe I only play 100 lineups. Like maybe I don't play as much. Do you think that, like, especially in like Showdown, like I mean, I view it the same way in Showdown. When I take a look at the slate, I'll take a look at the NFL Showdown slate and go, the highest owned player should be that high owned.
Yeah.
Everything that should be is owned in that way. And I like looking at the slates where like this guy's coming back from injury and no one's thinking that he's going to play, and he's going way under owned. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, here's a way that I can make a lot more unique constructions, and or slates where there's like four guys under the defenses that are like viable,
Yeah.
or
Those are the
or slates where there's two guys under the defenses that are going to be extremely chalky, but
right.
can easily bust, and the kickers are better. Like I look for those situations more than. Am I weird to like? Isn't that what you're supposed
No,
to
I,
do?
I 100% agree.
Of
There are
check what your
slates.
edge is going to be, and then adjust your volume based on that.
Yeah, and you could do that in NFL. I agree with you. Like Showdown is a spot where you can adjust your volume based on, like, NBA. You can't really do that because you don't really know what the edge
No,
is
no,
going to
I,
be.
I agree with you. You don't even
Yeah,
know 5 minutes before lock.
yeah, exactly. NFL typically, I mean, at least an hour and a half before you get inactives. Typically, occasionally you get surprises here and there, but typically you know who's going to be out, who's in an hour and a half before the slate. So yes, I agree with you that it does make sense to scale, but for me, at least, I do a lot of my research pretty late, so I think I often don't know until. I mean, now I'm doing a show tonight, so I guess tonight would be an example of when I'm doing my research a little bit earlier, and I'll know a little bit more early on. But
But I look I
so
look at the showdowns like this past year or two, like the Lamar showdown slates. I look at it and I look at it and go, unless I'm willing to fade Lamar, like why am I playing this fucking slate?
yeah, yep, those are tough. Yeah, I agree with you. There are some showdown slates that I look at and I go into the slate and I'm like, I feel really confident. So a couple weeks ago with Gabriel Davis being like, really, Gabriel Davis is only 5% owned and he's like 50% snap share or something like that. It was like there was no reason that he should be that low owned, and he was cheap, just like. And then there are other slates where I'm like, I'm gonna be playing a lot of Ty Montgomery. I don't really know why. I don't feel great about it. He's just super low owned, and I feel like he's a gadgety kind of player that wouldn't shock me if he has a big play. But yeah, there are slates that I go into with a lot more confidence than other slates, and I agree with you that it does make sense. People should probably scale based on the edge that they think they have, and I probably should do it. Probably those
Right.
slates for me.
Do what you say, not what you do.
Yeah. Probably for me, it would be I should only be 150 maxing those slates, and not playing anything in addition to the 150 max. Or maybe actually those are the ones where you want to do the opposite,
Right.
where you just play the smaller field stuff. Probably actually makes more sense in those kind of slates.
Right. Because that's what I
Yes.
would do on those types of slates. I would be like, well, I don't know how I'm going to be unique in the large, and for me to fade like the 90% owned player that may be required in every lineup in 150 lineups or something, I'll be like, when you're playing the smaller field stuff in Showdown, like I like the $33 one for
Mhm.
Showdown where it's like 5,000 entries, because I feel like worst case scenario, if I'm duped 5 times, it's still 50K to first, so it still comes out to like maybe like $14,000
Mhm.
or something, which is fine because I'm only playing 5 entries.
Right.
Right, I'm playing $165 in that and be like, now I removed the like, I'm not even gonna care about being duped, right? Like, I'm not gonna play a chalky lineup, but I'm not
Right.
gonna leave 4,000 on the table and play, the negatively correlated players. It's just like, and then a lot of times I go through in the $33 one. It's like, oh, my lineup's duped 6 times. My lineup's duped twice. I out of my 5 lineups, I'm like, none of them will be over 10, right? Now,
Okay.
which if anything was over 10 in that small of a field, like it's not that small, but for 50K to first, it's not worth it to play.
You played too chalky, yeah.
Right. But still, I'm able to get ones and twos and threes where it's like, I have no problem with that, being that I'm only playing 5 lineups. If I was playing 50 lineups, then I need to, now I need to make sure to be as unique as possible because coming in first for
Right.
3,500 bucks,
It's not
I mean,
enough.
you could
Yeah.
come in first and lose money. So, like,
Right.
so I feel on the slates where I don't feel that there's enough paths of being unique to just play less lineups into a smaller field. And on the slates where it's like, wow, there are a lot of ways of being unique, like those 15 fight UFC cards. It's
Mhm.
like, nope, 150, let's go. And then, I love checking it out, and I'm like, when I could get more than half my lineups to be unique, and more than 3/4 of my lineups to be under 5 dupes. Like I close the laptop and go, I succeeded, and hopefully it comes out that way. I mean, do you do the same process in NFL Showdown? Do you immediately check your dupe rates and everything?
I don't usually immediately check. I probably should. I mean, I usually check the next day how I did in
Okay, but
terms
you
of.
check in general.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
may not be like me that just wants to know whether or not they played the slate well, like immediately.
yeah.
But I
I
mean,
do
yes,
that like
yes,
sometimes I download the file to see what uh, individual players have for ownership. I do that kind of thing pretty frequently, but I don't usually go and find the dupes. Partially because I don't think that I have. I come across these. Sometimes people send me links to where you can check your dupes. I always forget where I can even check where the dupes are until the next day. I know that it's available right away, but I just check the next day
right. I
typically.
mean,
Yeah.
I've checked the next day also, but I mean, like MMA is typically a long enough. It's like the card doesn't start for 15 minutes. It's like, okay, I'll just
Oh yeah.
upload. Say it's like, okay, and then check other popular people and just go, I beat him in uniques. Oh, okay. And then sometimes you'll see like someone that get 147 uniques. It's like, what the fuck did that guy do? Then
Yeah.
I take a look at some of the lineups and I'm like, yeah, I see how you do. Like it's like the 4 biggest underdogs and then like 2 mid range and leaving 4,200 on the table. It's like, yeah, I didn't make any of these lineups, but good
Yeah.
luck to you if
Do you think that's a plus EV lineup?
yeah, in MMA it is.
Okay.
In MMA, but you could build a lot of those. I mean, I'm not a big fan of building a lot of those lineups.
Yeah. Because it's plus EV if you can live for 100 years.
Right,
It's not.
right. That's the point.
You're
Right.
unlikely
It's
to realize it. Yeah.
right. And also, a lot of times the raw that you get screwed on raw points. Like it's like, oh, you got sick. You played the 4 biggest underdogs, and they all won. But you didn't have this one guy, and that guy has
Right.
to be optimal. And then, like, like you have 50 of these lineups that look like that, and only one has the guy that you need. But in that lineup, you don't have the other guy that you need, and
Right.
now the four, like, oh great, you like 3x'd on all these lineups, and you lost money on the day, and it's like,
Yeah.
even though you were unique, like you have to mix them in. So like when I do
It's just
MMA
like a main
lineups,
slate. If everybody you play is 1% owned on a main slate, if the entire lineup is just completely getting random playing 1% owned guys, it's probably not going to be a good lineup.
right? But at least in NFL or NBA, the ownership is correlated to some amount of raw points. MMA is so binary that like anyone on the slate, like the fifth wide receiver of the whatever the Lions, like yeah, he's 3K if you want to play him. He's most likely to get 0 because he's barely if ever going to even see the field. It's like any MMA fighter could score any amount of. I mean, it's a
Yeah. Yeah.
fight. I mean, they're going to show up. There's no way for them not to legitimately be there. But I don't know what I was going to say. But My process now. I used to do the showdown process for MMA, which is
Mhm.
go through and ownership sum and
Yep.
see what lineups are too duped and potentially too duped and eliminate them and go through that. But now that I switched over to like assigning a rating to like each fighter, the lineups just meant like I said the min salary is nothing, the max salary is 50,000, and a lineup that spends all the salary but has a high rating is still more likely to be either unique or under five dupes because the ratings are tied to the ownership leverage.
Right.
So, like, the higher the
Yeah.
score, the more unique it's most likely going to be, regardless of the salary. So, I get some lineups that rate highly that are 50K and have a very similar rating, and it's a different lineup that only spends 48 too,
And
right?
are
With
you
different
are you
fighters.
150 maxing typically for MMA?
Yeah, typically, yes.
Okay, because I'm
For
like,
the larger
you have such a
cards.
unique process. For me, it would be a waste to have that kind of a process and not 150 max.
Well, that's the only reason that's pretty much
That's
the
why you
only
do it.
reason I do. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
once I saw that MMA like there's too many. Once I saw that it was like Showdown, I'm like, I know how to do this, and it's so much simpler because there's no correl. I don't have to worry about correlation. I don't have to
Yeah,
worry about fucking AJ Brown and the captain in a losing 1-5 lineup being the nuts.
yeah. Wasn't a fan of that.
Right? Wasn't a what the hell is that? How did that work out? I had so
Yeah.
many good lineups. No AJ Brown captains though.
I think I had a couple, but he was, especially in the large field, he was like, I want to say like 60% owned or 80% owned maybe in the high dollar stuff, which I didn't see coming at all. He was not expected to be chalky in the large field, and I did not anticipate how highly owned AJ Brown was. And I had some of him in the large field, but I didn't have any in the 222 or whatever it was that day, the higher dollar stuff. And of course, he went off, and I lost all my entries.
Do you think that the two most classic NFL show, if you had the classic NFL showdown slates, memorable ones, I think one for me is not ones that you won. I'm talking about just ones in general, like
Those are the most
weird.
memorable for me.
Right,
Yeah, yeah. Go
obviously
ahead.
they're the most memorable for me also. Uh, the James Robinson 1-5 one from last year.
I'm probably not going to remember these
You're not gonna
specific
remember. You're not
showdown
gonna remember
splits
that
from a
exact.
year ago. Yeah, no,
Anytime,
I don't remember that one.
anytime 1-5 captains win, where the
Yeah,
losing teams is the winning captain, and then 5 from the winning team. So I just never get to those. I don't know. I don't know how I ever get to those types of lineups. But I think the most classic one is the Mariota win.
oh yeah. So I mean,
The
there's
the
that one.
backup quarterback get
Yeah.
like that part
No, I
that
get
is
it.
the definition of getting absurdly like of a
Yeah, yeah.
negative EV lineup that you could
Are you
play
sure
those
that it's
lineups
negative
until
EV
you
though?
did and you'll always be profitable because you won that one time.
Are you sure that that's negative EV lineup? Because I am not totally sure, and I've heard all of like the smart players that I listen to, almost all the smart players I listen to, agree with you that you should never play the backup QB, and it's not something that I do either. Typically, it was when I started though, because I'm like, that is
Playing the
just the
backup
easiest
QB at
way.
the captain spot.
Oh, in the captain spot, no. Yeah, yeah, I mean in the captain spot
Okay,
especially,
because
it's
now it's
you
not
need to
just
run
playing the cut.
really,
It's not right,
really
right.
well.
That
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that's the point that I'm making. It's like okay, maybe you
Okay.
can make a sense of a 6K guy on
Yeah,
DraftKings that may not even see that may not even get in the game, but now to pay 9K in the captain for him to be enough of a scorer. Uh,
yeah.
no, I think if you simulate it out, you'd see that it's if you base it on whatever project it'll you won't win often enough, even if you're unique and even if it's a milli maker.
Yeah,
That
because I
that
mean, you need to get every other part of your lineup right still, or close to. You still need to get everything else right, and you need to get extremely lucky in that spot. So yeah, it might be. I see the merit to it kind of because there's enough injuries in football, and because the quarterback puts up so many points that a guy that's 6,000, if he gets in there and gets to put up 12, 14 points and nobody else has him. I see the merit to it. I kind of understand the play, even though I don't do it anymore. I think that I played it a couple of years ago. I played like one every slate I would do a backup quarterback for that reason, just because I thought this is the easiest way to win. Of course, now I have gotten better at Showdown, and I've kind of learned that you don't need to get quite that crazy. So maybe that's what it's come down to, is now I've learned that you don't need to get that lucky to win at Showdown. But I understand
Because even on that slate, if you took away that guy's lineups, like a non-Mariota captain lineup would have won.
Right, yeah,
Right, so like you didn't even like, even though like the optimal lineup would have been that lineup, like just no one would have made. I mean, this happens in. It seems weird, even though because Showdown you have these large fields that sometimes, like on the classic slates, we see it all the time. You don't need the nuts,
right.
the optimal, the absolute best possible lineup you could ever make to win the Millie Maker in NFL or to win an MLB slate or even win Showdown. There are plenty of times in Showdown that if you just ran in Optimizer or Lineup Rewind or whatever, and okay, what's the best possible lineup? That may not be the lineup that won the GP. It may, when Frank Gore or something, whatever, Garrett Gore on the Chiefs or something, they may not be in the winning line. The 0.2% owned player, you don't have to worry about. And same for MMA. There are a lot of times in MMA where I'm like, do I have a path to the optimal? Now, a lot of times the optimal will be the GPP winning lineup. But when chalk fails and weird things happen on a slate, I look through my lineups and go, nope, I don't have literally the lineup that I won $116,000 with. 3 fights previous to the last fight, I didn't think I had any shot. I literally had no shot. I was like, nope, I don't have a shot at winning first today. And it just turns out, because calculating the optimal, it's like I don't have any combination that gives me these spots to get that lineup. Good thing no one had that lineup, right? Because and then another favorite, like a big heavy favorite in the next fight, lost, so it eliminated a ton of those lineups. And I'm sitting there by the last fight going, holy shit, I have a 3-way tie for oh, I didn't realize that an hour ago I was like, okay, minus 30% on the day. Yeah. And then next thing you know, I'm rooting for fucking the main event to just fucking die so I could win this shit. But
so you say that you typically close your laptop after you see your ownership. Do you typically sweat? I think we've talked about this. That you're typically somebody who watches what's happening and you sweat throughout the night, right?
Depends on the sport.
Okay.
MMA I like watching, so I don't mind watching MMA. I mean, but baseball only maybe for the first hour.
Okay.
So I mean, because a lot of times you're waiting on the Dodgers lineup or the Angels lineup or something. I'll open up the MLB app on my phone. And see what
I don't watch baseball these days, but I am tracking it throughout the night. I'm definitely watching to see what happens, who's putting up home runs, and I don't really start paying too close of attention until it's like the last game is happening, and if I have something worth sweating, then I'll be paying attention. But
and NBA, you almost have NBA. You're almost like when you play NBA,
sweat is built in because you need to be paying attention.
Right, you have to be paying attention until the last game goes off. So and then NFL, you got Red Zone, and it's like, what else am I doing? I mean, other than that, dude, soccer's my favorite sport, and most of the time I don't even watch the games anymore. Even on Saturday morning, a lot of times on Saturday morning, I set my lineups 10 o'clock Eastern. I put the notifications on my phone, the goal notifications, just so I know when.
So why do you not watch if it's your favorite sport?
Well, DFS has ruined everything for me.
Oh, okay, I get that.
But I mean, I have other things to do, so it's like, okay, I'll set my soccer lineups, and then I'll get my MMA is coming up at 2 o'clock, so I gotta work on that or whatever. It's not as important because I couldn't watch a soccer game for fun anymore because I'm turning on a game that I have that guy and this guy and this guy, so it's not like I'm watching soccer anymore. And if I'm just watching for will my guy score a goal, I might as well just have the goal notifications on and just do something else.
Right. Okay. I get it.
Is that weird? Just like an NBA, do you find it weird that an NBA, I could go an entire season without physically watching an NBA game, yet I will have windows of all the play-by-play on my computer screen?
No, I mean I'm the same way. I mean
you do.
I do watch
do the
NBA
same?
because
Do you do the same thing as me?
Oh, I do a lot of just following the box scores. Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, like I have like 3 screens, and I like
No, we talked about this. I don't have 3 screens. Yeah,
right. But so do you like flip between them and go?
I flip between them. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just lay them out. I
Typically,
have
there's
multiple browser windows, and I just like, oh, okay, there's a foul. Oh, there's a basket. Oh, they're in timeout. Right.
yeah.
But the only reason I'm doing that also is because I'm going to be sitting in front of my computer for 3 fucking hours anyway. Right. Because someone's going to be out and someone's getting COVID and who knows what the hell's happening. So I might as well figure out what's going on. And I don't get how people could watch multiple. I could understand watching multiple football games.
Mhm.
Like, let's say you have 4 TVs and you're like, I'm going to put on 4 football games. Seems like I could pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Baseball, I could put on the MLB TV in 2 browser windows and have 8 games going at once because the game is paced in a way where it's like, oh, that guy's up there. Oh, there's bases loaded over here, and you could kind of switch your eyes between the two. How the fuck do you do that with basketball?
You can't with basketball. Yeah.
How do you know what the
Would
hell's
not be
going on?
enjoyable.
How do you watch more than like one game at a time?
Sometimes I'll have one game that I'm watching, and then I'll have my phone open, watching the box score of another one, watching the play-by-play.
Mm.
Like
Well, I
that's
like
typically what
using
I do.
DK Live.
Oh, really? I've never used DK Live.
Oh, to me DK Live is I've replaced the play-by-play in NBA with DK Live because you just
Really?
put the all feed, the all scoring feed, and all
Okay.
you see is anytime anyone does anything, it'll just stream that like similar like a Twitter stream.
Sounds addictive. Yeah.
Right, so it's like, okay, Malcolm Brogdon, 3-pointer, assist from whatever, 0.15, and then go to the next. It's like, oh, -1, foul, whatever, and just of all the games, and it'll show you the substitutions, and I'm like, okay, I could just and just watch that stream, and
And
that
it
should
doesn't
tell me
happen too
everything I know
fast.
about all the games.
Okay. I would think it would happen too fast. If it's every game, I would feel like it would be such a fast stream that you couldn't even keep up with
No,
it.
no, it doesn't go that fast.
Okay.
And then you have on the sidebar all the leaders. Yeah, right. So
Oh,
it
that's
shows the
cool.
right. So you
Man,
could see it's like, oh,
sounds awesome.
where's so it's where's
Is
Gordon
this on the
Hayward?
app?
Oh, he's nowhere. Now I have to scroll. 8 points. How
Is
is
it
he
on
only
the
has eight
DK app?
points? Everyone's out. What's going on?
Yeah.
I
Is it
couldn't
on
go
the
to
app
DK
or is it
Live for
just on the
NBA
website?
now. I don't even know. I don't even know who these lineups. Neil,
Yeah.
these starting lineups. I just laugh. I see the starting lineup tweets now, and I remember I haven't not played NBA for a month and a half or something. I'm like, who? What? Who
Yeah.
are
I mean,
these?
some of them.
Right?
Yeah.
I think the Magic lineup got announced last night. I knew Franz Wagner. I knew Carter Jr. And it's like 3 guys that like are these real people? I mean, like just. And then
You see that
then I see people's lineups. I see people posting screenshots or something of their lineup, like, oh, it came in fourth or something. And I look down, it's like 36% owned guy I've literally never heard of.
Kessler
Like,
Edwards. My $100,000 win had Kessler Edwards in it, and I could not place him in a lineup.
who's Kessler Edwards?
No idea.
Do you
He
even remember
projected
what
well.
team he plays for?
Plays for the Nets. I know that much.
Oh, is that when the like 8 of the Nets were out or something?
Yeah. So it's just all of the backups were chalky and projected well.
Kessler Edwards. Did you get a Kessler Edwards jersey?
I did not. Yeah, I have yet to buy a jersey of anybody. I'm not. I'm not a jersey wearer. Is that the whole Lols thing? Grown men wearing jerseys.
Well,
I
that's
have no
Brian's
issue with it.
thing.
I don't have the issue that Brick 75 has with grown men wearing jerseys. Wear whatever you want, but I'm not a jersey wearer.
Well, I'm not a
Just not
jersey
a big enough
wearer
fan.
either, but to me
Yeah.
that's my collector's items.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a cool collector's
Yeah, but
item. It's just not.
you'd be collecting a lot. You'd be getting this past 3 months. You'd be buying 3 jerseys and then
Right.
going, I'm celebrating me losing $20,000.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. If I were to get one, it would be a Harrison Bryant jersey. You got to win me a milli. If you win me a milli, then I'll
Okay,
buy
that's
jersey.
your cutoff. $1 million.
Yeah. Yep.
Was he the lowest on player in that lineup?
Yeah. He was
Okay.
the lowest owned.
Because that's my tradition. Whoever the
He's the
lowest
reason I
on.
got called a bot on Facebook. The DraftKings people were like, "There's no way somebody played Harrison Bryant. Why would you play Harrison Bryant? This is totally a bot. This isn't a real
Yeah, but
lineup."
wasn't that a week where he was actually like viable?
Yeah, I mean that's why I played him because
I think I
because
played. He scored 2 touchdowns that day, right?
that's correct. Yep.
Right, but it was one of those days where I remember one of their tight ends was the Browns tight ends was out.
Austin Hooper was out.
Right. Everyone
And
thought
then
Njoku would be
Yep.
the replacement, but Harrison Bryant, who was like a rookie or something like that, like
yeah. And they announced that he was going to be starting. That morning.
Exactly. It was like,
and they were playing the Bengals, who were at the time, I think, the worst defense against tight ends in the league. So it was just everything. And I was aware of him anyway because of best ball, because I was playing a lot of David Njoku in best ball, and then I would get notifications saying the Browns really love this Harrison Bryant guy. He might take over the number 2 tight end role. So like I was kind of aware of him as somebody that they liked. So it was a lot of factors came in.
no,
And
I
I ended up
remember
playing
that slate.
a lot of him.
I played Harrison Bryant that slate.
I
Like,
mean, it made sense, but
what was
people
he
didn't
owned?
understand it.
What was his ownership?
I want to say 2.7%.
Okay, but that's not bot worthy.
I know.
I mean, come on.
I agree.
2.7% is not bot worthy.
No,
Playing Mariota and the
playing
captain and winning
2.7.
showdown,
Yeah, right.
that's
That's
bot
a bot.
worthy.
Yeah,
Right?
I agree. Yeah.
But that's what
Still,
you
I
get
enjoyed it.
when you go on Facebook, when you go on
Yeah,
Facebook groups or whatever, that it's all conspiracy theories. It's all
yeah.
the DFS groups. It's almost like going to QAnon meetings.
Yeah, for sure.
The subreddit's not as bad as it used to be, but
Yeah.
But I do dive into the Facebook groups just for probably every 2 or 3 months, just for and I'll just scroll through. I got an hour to spare. I'll just go through. Oh, and you'll find conspiracies that you've never even thought about, right? And you'll find people talking like this guy is that guy is that guy. It's like, dude, there's a photo with them in the same picture. Like they can't be the same guy. There's literally a photo of all 3 of them together on the
Like
internet.
I'd be
No, because they'll
anybody
say
in
stuff like
particular?
awesome, like Alex
Oh,
is a bot, or they'll say that Chipotle addict and they'll say Chipotle
propagate.
and Papa Gates are the same person. And
Right.
I'm like, they're brothers. It's very
Yeah.
well known that they're
Yeah.
brothers. Like you could say whatever you want. And you could pretend you could claim that they're cheating or something, but like
Right.
they're not the same person. Like they're literally not. Like
Right.
we know this for a
They've been
fact.
to live finals.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole point. A lot of times when they're like these 4 people are the same people. It's like that. No, they're in a photo together. Like one
Yeah.
guy's holding up a check, and the other 2 people are like, "Way to go, dude!" Like they're literally there. And then the comments, and if anyone mentions anything like that, the comments will be like, "Well, they're fake people, right? They're really
yeah, they're paid
DraftKings
actors.
employees, right? Or
Yeah, right.
it's nuts."
Yeah.
Ah.
Huh. I mean, people just want to find a reason that they're not winning money, right? Just any excuse. This is why I'm not successful at daily fantasy sports. It's not because I don't know what I'm doing. It's because they're cheating. The sites are just stealing money from you.
So what's my excuse then?
Well, what'd you make? 81,000 this year? What's your
Yeah.
excuse?
Well, how
What do
about
you mean?
how about all the times that I lost?
Well, sure, yeah. Well then,
Right? I don't win that often, right? But when I win a lot of money. But how about all the other times? I mean, I would have won all the other times if it wasn't for those damn bots,
that's a good point.
right? I think you're a bot. I think we're the same people. People will say that.
We might be. Yeah.
We might be
We're
the
wearing
same
the same
people.
hat. We're wearing the same hat.
Not the same hat.
Transposed a different face. I mean, pretty close though.
Okay.
Is that a Louisville hat? Big Gordy
Yeah,
Jen
Louisville
fan?
City. See, that's the soccer team I watch.
Oh, okay.
But I could watch because it's the local team, and there's no DFS for it.
Okay, makes it
So I
more
can
fun.
actually watch and be like, I don't care if Cameron Lancaster scores a goal. It's not going to affect my DFS contest, right?
I went to a Timberwolves game last Sunday, and I did not have anything on it. Zero money on it. Zero DFS lineups. It was
How
really
fast did you
bizarre.
fall asleep?
I still enjoyed it, even though there no Anthony Edwards either, who was the guy I really wanted to watch. I still enjoyed it. Yeah, still a fun experience. I enjoy going to basketball games. Going to football games is sort of I'd probably prefer to just watch it on my couch, but going to basketball games is a little more fun.
I thought hockey. To me, the sports that are better live than on TV is soccer and hockey.
Yeah,
I think
the
everything
low
else.
scoring. Yeah, I've enjoyed. I've only been to one Wild game ever. A friend of mine invited me, and I happened to live right like a quarter mile from the Excel Center at the time, so it was just I'll go to, and it was a fun experience. It would probably be more fun if I knew anything about the sport and like if I
Right.
knew what was going on. But it was definitely, the crowd was super into it, so it was pretty fun. And
Right.
I've been
But
to a few FC United. Is it FC United? The
Minnesota.
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 Yeah. I've been to Minnesota United. Yeah, I've been to
Right.
a few of their games. Yeah, it's a good time. For not knowing the sports, I still enjoyed it. Still enjoyed the experience.
That doesn't seem like that much of a compliment. I enjoyed the experience.
I mean, I don't watch soccer. I know. I mean, I played soccer like as a kid, so like I know most of the rules. But yeah, I don't track soccer closely. So, and I didn't have money on it. I like to have money on my games.
So soccer DFS, come on.
I at least one of them I did play DFS, and they were in the pool, so I did play some of the Minnesota guys. But yeah, some of the games they just wasn't available.
Okay, so we're wrapping up 2021. The first full year with that, it almost feels like, wow, we got an entire year of sports in without that much delay of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, right until the end, until right the last 2 months, kind of just like, good luck to your season-long teams. Like, you know how frustrating it must be to like,
I mean, best ball was the worst. You put in all this effort, you have your teams get through, and then like this week I had Austin Eckler on my best team. Austin Eckler was on the COVID list, and then the other one had Travis Kelce. And I think most of us had that experience. But then you're in a group of 12, and there's just one team that's fully healthy, has good players. It's like, yep, you're just dead at that point. So
right.
Yeah.
Or imagine coming into your lineup. It's like, oh, I got a Brady stack. I got Brady, Godwin, and Evans, and it's like,
right.
I'm in the playoffs, and it's like, what happened there?
Yep.
Oops.
Pretty brutal.
But hopefully we'll get a better 2022.
Yeah.
And I don't know. You're not I'm not a resolution person either. Typically, the cheesy thing on podcasts would be, what would your New Year's resolution be?
I'm trying to lose weight this year. I think that's
okay. That's not DFS related.
To lose weight. It's not DFS related though. Yeah.
Right. But losing.
It's going to be a little bit healthier in general.
Okay. Well, you could lose weight like if you carry money in your bankroll, but losing money you could lose weight that way.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Or if you're starving, right? It's like you lost so much that I can't afford to eat anymore.
That's one way to do it, I guess.
Maybe you can do it. That's like that's
TaxLoss
harvesting for your body.
Yeah. I'll try different methods first, I think.
Right. It's TaxLoss harvesting season, people. If you're listening to this on the 27th, according to some tax advisors or whatever, you got what? The 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, you got 5 days. You got 5 days. If you're up money, you got 5 days to lose it.
Go lose that money.
Go lose that money before you have to give 20-something% of it to the government, because you'd rather not keep the other 75% of it, right? You'd rather just lose that so you just don't have to give the other part to the government, unless you're in Canada. Don't even bother. Canada, just close your books. You finish play. You're up way more than anyone in the U.S. Yeah, the people in Canada, I take a look at how much I paid in taxes the past, 5 years, and I go, geez, like...
Could have saved a lot of money.
Right, I should have just moved before I did this. I should have just moved to Canada.
Yep. There's benefits there.
Player Q DFS on Twitter, and once the football season's over, Neil, are you going to be doing shows for like basketball and stuff and baseball?
Yeah, we're still working that out. I'm going to be doing some kind of shows. I don't know exactly. I think I'll do baseball. I can't do live before lock for basketball, so I think I'm probably just not going to be doing basketball shows. But still working that out. But I'll be doing some content at Osimo.
Right. Well, and NBA doing shows for NBA is almost like that's a thankless task, right?
Yeah. Right.
Right. And I mean, other than like maybe an hour before lock, anything else before that, like why?
I know.
It's just why even bother?
Pointless. Yeah. You can still learn from watching them because they talk about theory and stuff, but yeah, for the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, for anything else, it's kind of like, well, if this guy's out, this is good. But we have 24 people that could potentially be out, and then 20 people that we don't even know could be out are going to be out. Right? So what does it matter? So you can follow me at Blender HD, as always. The Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass. You can find at theoryofdfs.com.